I hope you're not waking up from a nightmare. Because today we're talking about Omori. Now, Omori is a game that I would tell you is best played blind. So, we're going to do my 2 spoiler system for this video. So, we're going to do the very base minimum here and leave those who want to be as blind as possible from there. And then we'll go into some more slighter things about the story aspect. And then, of course, we'll have the end spoilers, which will be, just straight out my opinions on the overall experience and stuff. Anyway, so, minimalistically, Omori is a RPG that takes place in a child's dream, and the game will take place between the dream and the real world. And the JRPG aspect isn't a big thing in the real world. There are a few minor things with it, but it's a lot more simple than that. When you're journeying through the dream, combat has several different things to your advantage. First thing is the emotion system. So, you'll have like a lot of buffs and debuff type things in a lot of RPGs. Well, in Omori, they're all the same. All your emotions are both buffs and debuffs. Happy, angry, and sad, along with the 2 additional tiers that only the main character can enter, will have drastically different effects on the character. For example, sad makes you more defensive, but at the cost of your speed and some of your juice, which is your MP. Happy increases luck speed, but it drastically lowers your hit rate, meaning you'll have higher chances of doing criticals, but you'll have a harder time hitting. Angry makes you super strong, making your attack go up, but it also makes your defense go down, leaving you more vulnerable while you deal more damage. On top of this, there's also a rock, paper, scissors system going on. Happy strong against angry, angry strong against sad, and sad's more stronger against happy. There's also neutral, which, is neutral. There's no plus or negative to it. And in combat, you can affect both yours and enemy emotions. And in random fights, sometimes enemies will also always be afflicted with a certain emotion. Allowing you to control emotions allows you a great opportunity of unique playstyles. Do you want to be more chaotic? Do you want to be more based on crits? Do you want to just hit for high damage? Or do you want to be more defensive? It gives you a lot of freedom in most fights to choose your playstyle. On top of that, there is the Afraid status, which is a more unique and situational emote that basically makes you weak to everything and you cannot use your skills or follow-ups. So you're left very vulnerable if you happen to get affected by Afraid. Follow-ups. Follow-ups is another unique idea in this game. So, essentially, when your friends' turns come up and you have energy to be able to expel, as you build up energy, kind of like a limit break kind of thing, but it just builds up by number. Follow-ups will consume the energy meter if you use them, but they can have a lot of uses, and as you progress through the game, the follow-ups evolve. How follow-ups follow up? Ha 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 ha. When it's a character's turn, you can do a follow-up with another character. You'll be told with little balloons by the character's head, and you can hit the corresponding direction to activate a follow-up with that character. Every character has different interactions with another character in a follow-up. Some can do new different types of attacks or effects. Others will apply emotions to you or the enemy. They can do different types of things. So knowing what follow-ups do can give you an extra edge. And as I said, they evolve as the game goes on. So they get more potent in different effects. Release energy. When you maximize your energy bar to 10, you can release your energy. This is basically a giant all-out attack. It is usually really strong. there's not a lot of situations where you wouldn't want to use the tile LNG because it just does gigantic damage, and it's usually an easy way to absolutely mortal a regular fight if you happen to ever trigger it in a regular fight. Admittedly, for me personally, it just usually only happens in boss fights. But if you happen to bump into stronger enemies early on, you got that as an extra little help in hand. And in the overworld, you have the tag system. Basically, you can tag in a different party member, and each character learns abilities throughout the game. The main character can cut things. There are different roots and traffic cones and wires and things that the main character can cut to further along your path. Kell's throw allows him to do a lot of nice throwing smackdown, and basically allows him to achieve farther distance when needing to hit it like a button or something. Omori's smash allows her to just wallop something that's way too much for your little dinky little knife to stab. Pots, barrels, blocks, you need them? Well, we'll smash them. And Hero's Charm. This is a bit more of a unique kind of thing. Apparently, you can get a lot of interesting conversations having Hero as the main character in the party when talking to NPCs. Sometimes being able to get free stuff or discounts of that. So, can be useful to also try. All these elements together make combat pretty interesting, to be honest. But some of these elements you won't always get to use all the time. Like I said, using the release energy option is not likely going to happen in most regular fights. That's usually going to be most bosses, per se. So you're more likely to use follow-ups and random encounters. Otherwise, the game has a very traditional system. You'll have gear that you can go through. You have your MP, which is your juice, and your HP. Equipment is pretty simple, though. You're not going to find an in-depth system in this particular title. You'll have your weapon, and you'll have your charm. You can only have one charm. And you'll find many different charms. Some will be a lot more useful than others. And again, gives you a lot of strategic customization that you can apply to your party. Different stat raising items. Items that will apply emotions at the start of battle. Different critical hits. Get more money. There's a lot of different effects. And depending on how you're developing your characters and that, you can get quite a few different things. For most of this stuff, you're going to find most of it. There's very few instances of buying equipment, so you're encouraged to really explore a lot, because you could miss something that could be an upgrade for your party members, a really useful charm that could change your strategy, or more so, some weaponry that you get for your party members also teach them additional moves. So you could also be losing out on additional skills your character could use. Omori is a very emotional game. Without getting into any spoilers, it's a game that definitely follows the themes of emotions and things. I definitely recommend checking out this game and playing it. Now, I will comment real quick before we go into actually explaining a bit more about what the fuck's going on in the story a little bit more. This is on Switch, PlayStation, and PC. And while it was on Xbox for a short amount of time, you can no longer get it on Xbox. And if you want it physically, it is available on PS4 and Switch. And it is important to note that the console versions do have additional content, which includes fights and a few unique little things that are exclusive to it. So if you want the full experience, you'll want to play the console version. And it is important to note the console version does have a few minor flaws in it. And I did play through the PS4 version, but even with those flaws, I still think it is an incredibly worthwhile game to play. But with that, that is my recommendation to go check it out for those who want the as pure blind experience as you can when it comes to the story. So, let's break through the first level of spoilers and open up a little bit more. So, you will bounce between the dream and real world. This game is about trauma. The main character is experiencing a horrible trauma, and the dreams are his escapism from that trauma. Sadly, that trauma wants to still creep in his dreams. The game is very stacked full of all kinds of secrets, ones that are always constant and ones that are random. If you ever saw like the what was the name of that character? The character that randomly can be met in that hallway in Undertale. It has an RNG number thing, and similar to that, this game has that. And that RNG number that your game, every time you start a new game, you will get a number in that. It will trigger different scenes and other scenes that won't be triggered in that playthrough. Apparently there is an NPC in the casino that will actually tell you what your number is. They mention it as something else, but talking to them, this number does indicate what your random number thing is. So if you're trying to generate a specific scene to happen, you can use this as a method of trying to figure out your seed. Sadly, you do have to play a chunk of the game to get to this NPC. So if it's a very far out there thing, then well, it's still a bit time commitment. When you're in the real world, the main character goes through the real life, obviously. The main character is moving in a few days. Now, your friends exist both in your dream and in reality. Like, it's actually really interesting how much stuff in your dream world is clearly inspired by not just simply your friends, but residents and other people in the town. IPs, markets, foods, stores, other characters. Like, there's a random secret boss that's based on 2 fucking kids that are in the bread store. It's just, it really pulls from a lot of different things in the town. If you explore the town a lot, you'll find lots of interesting references to things in your dreams. Many things have references. But you're essentially going through dealing with your trauma, and depending on your actions in the real world, you can dictate how the story goes. As a person that's suffering from trauma, it probably doesn't take much imagination to really get the gist of the 2 main paths that can happen to the main character, so we won't get into that too much. Of course, the correct thing to do would be to actually interact with the world when given the opportunity. Staying as a shut-in, a hikikomori, well, that's of course going to lead to a worse fate. Item-wise, outside of your gear being pretty limited and not really having a big store variety when it comes to equipment, item-wise, there's plenty of types of foods and strange things that can heal both your HP and your juice, which again is your equivalent of MP. And many of them have some interesting extra benefits. There are a handful of very few that have additional little buff effects, like, increasing defense and such. A few minor ways to do further enhancements outside of the emotional system. On top of that, you also have toys. So toys are additional mechanical choices. So, these are all items that normally affect emotions generally, but some of them also do a few additional things, like, say, like the jacks that will reduce speed for all foes, or the rubber bands that will reduce a foe's defense. Most toys will have effects on emotions, like the air horn will turn all friends angry, or the present that can be used on foe or friend to make someone angry. the Wayne Cloud that will make all friends sad. So, as you can see, there are a variety of additional ways to control emotions. Outside of your tag team and your toys, the only other way you're going to usually control your emotions other than your opponent inflicting them on you or themselves is their skills. Several of your party members do have skills that can change theirs or other party members' emotions, allowing you additional control on being able to change them. Every character learns multiple abilities, but you can only have 4 of them equipped. This allows you to design the characters the way you want. And while you can look at most of the characters and get a general idea what their role in the party is, it's nice to see at the same time most characters can act in different ways. If you want the main character to be more of a damage dealer, you can. If you want him to be more defensive, you can. So you can design the characters in a few different ways, giving you more flexibility towards your particular playstyle. You may not like the abilities that are more ranged towards critical. Maybe you like the ones that do more buffing and debuffing. Maybe you like counteracting. Maybe you want more characters who are tanky. Maybe you want to fall back on abilities that help restore things. Pick how you want to play. Just be sure you change them out as necessary, because, well, sometimes there can be some encounters where it could be useful to have someone other skills in a few situations. As mentioned, there's lots of silly secrets, spooky secrets, and lots of side quests you can do for additional things, equipment, money, or items, or just a pat on the back. There's lots of stuff to be done, so if you want a game with a lot of side stuff, you definitely got a lot of things that you can do in this game. And lots of stuff that can be just as missable. But what I find charming is that this is one of those games that does a lot of things that it didn't necessarily have to do, but it did for the sake of either charm, storytelling, character development, or the setting of the game, and it wasn't even necessary to do it. And sometimes there's just a lot of bizarre, silly things to be done, but sometimes you might be surprised the reward you can get at the end of some stuff, or tasks, or repeating, or revisiting things. There's lots and lots of nice variety and secrets. Definitely great for secret hunting. Overall, I really find the game very charming, and honestly, it really touches me heart, because I can relate to a lot of the problems and despair in certain situations of the characters. The game deals with a very, very tough subject matter, and the results of that is something a lot of people can likely relate to. But we'll go into that in spoilers. Now, I played the PS4 version, and it is to note that the console version between the PC version does have additional content. There's a few additional unique situations. There's apparently some secrets that are also exclusive, but there are a lot of secrets. I mean, like gigantic documents, so I can't really name drop which specific ones, because even to this day, tons of people are always still looking for all kinds of secrets and data mining this game. So, but some of the features that we can easily talk about. The game features a screen border. You can change the border to a few different ones, or leave it on default, where the game will actually change it depending on what's going on in the game. And there's actually a sneaky little Easter egg in one of them too, depending on your game progression. That's kind of interesting that I didn't notice until I replayed the game for the bad ending. Apparently there were a few adjustments made with a few percentages behind the corn things. Nothing too big, but there was a few. I remember when I was looking at some item usages, it listed some different percentage effects on the characters, so there were a few under the hood changes there, but nothing too drastic. But overall, the majority of the game is the same, other than the new content and a few bug-related things. Probably one of the most annoying bugs with this version, unpatched. Now, remember, I generally play a lot of my things unpatched to give you an idea what the physical game is like down the road. So, like, you know, if patches are no longer available, you know what the original raw material was like and that. So, this is for the PS4 version specifically, but I imagine some of these are likely in the Switch version. So one of the most annoying bugs is the sounds. So sometimes, depending on doing actions, moving about the world, I've mostly noticed it usually when characters are chatting or you're in the menu. And the big snow area has a lot of fucking audio problems when just moving. So it's really odd. In some areas it's more noticeable than those, but there was a weird kind of stacked distortion that happens with the audio at times. And it's a shame because the soundtrack is so good. So it's a real shame when it's taking effect. Like, again, it's mostly noticeable when characters are chatting on a menu, but sometimes noticeable when moving around as well. Most of the time it's minor, but in the snow area specifically, it's hideous for some reason now. I do not know why. One of the objectives in the game is the hangman game. It is given to the player as something to do, but you're given no context what it is or why to do it, or if it's even a mandatory thing. So I won't go into what it is, but I will tell you, if you finish the hangman game, the game will make a save at the location that you got your last piece. For me, it was in the snow area, and I am just assuming it's where you got the last piece, to be fair. I have not tested if it's the same in other places, but I'm assuming it will do that. But what it did for me is it saved, so when I load the game up, it auto goes to that save. Now, it doesn't take up any of your save slots or anything, and you can load up whatever your last save was. So it's just a bit of a strange thing. From what I understand, this might be a strange effect of something the PC version did, where it would close the game. Except, like, if you ever played, like, Undertale, there's a moment in the game where it shuts down itself and you gotta restart the game up again and that to continue it. There's supposed to be something like that in the PC version, which doesn't exist in the console version, because, well, there's no way they were gonna let you do something like that. So, my understanding is remnants of that. So, it's a bit weird, but you don't lose your save. So, it's good. And if you're clever, you could even make use of it as somewhere you can ride backwards at it, because it's still saved there in my game as some invisible save that doesn't exist. It's a bit odd. It's a bit strange. On the more broken, janky side, there are 6 saves, but only 3 of them work. 4, 5, and 6 are broken. 4 seems to retain information, but you won't be able to load it, and 5 and 6 get deleted when you shut the game off. Now, they work as long as you don't shut the game down, but when you shut the game down, 4, 5, and 6 will be duds. So, only use them temporarily while you have the game open for, like, reloading purposes. Otherwise, if you're going to shut the game down, make sure you save in 1, 2, or 3, or you will be going backwards in time. I did both the good and bad ending, and there were multiple bad endings, so I didn't get all the bad endings. But in these 2 branching paths, there were 2 parts in the game, and I won't mention where they were, because that could be potential spoilers, but there was a good part and a part in the bad part that both had these big hiccupy, like, they were scenes that were happening in the story, and, like, they're optional ones, they're not mandatory ones, But when you do them, it like slugs the game, like it just slowly chugs, and the audio and everything goggles up. And you can, be done with the scene, because these are like hangout scenes. So, like, generally hangout scenes, like, just let something, like, go through sprite animations and stuff. So, once you're done, you can, like, cancel out on that. But it takes a second for it to cancel out, because, like, everything's, like, going slow-mo and shit. It's really weird, and while it didn't hinder or stop me from being able to progress the game, it was sadly, concerning, because I'm just like, is the game dead? Is it fucked up? It's like, nope, okay, good, everything's normal again. It's really weird. So, I didn't encounter anything that stopped me from progressing and being able to beat the game, as long as you don't use the last 3 save slots. That will be a big loss of your gameplay if you fuck up on that. And even, like, with those negatives, I really enjoyed my time with this game. It's really lovely and touching to me, and I really like that the subject matters and related to several of the problems the main character has in this journey. So, with that, let's go over the price points here. I definitely recommend this game for JRPG fans and people who relate to having trauma, like if you can deal with fiction that has trauma and stuff. Now, obviously, if you're in a situation where that like triggers you, like it triggers like episodes and shit, then no. But I mean, if you can deal with it in a fictional sense, then yes, I can, like, you can definitely relate to the characters in those situations in that way better. I definitely recommend the game. Now, what do I say is the value of it? It goes for $19.99 on Steam. As far as I can tell, that's the only PC option you have is Steam. There's no DLC option. Console-wise, it's on the Nintendo Switch and the PS4. Oddly enough, it did have an Xbox version that was short-lived and delisted strangely. And as far as I know, to this day, there was no reason given at why it was removed from Xbox. So if you happen to have had it on Xbox, you technically own an incredibly strange and well digital version of this game. Physically, it's only available on PS4 and Switch. If you want the physical version, the standard physical version, there is a limited collector's edition that comes with a lovely music box, by the way. You're looking at $34 brand new, and it's still available from multiple people. Definitely recommend it via Video Games Plus for those tax saving and free shipping options, though. But this was a fan game or published game, so that's an option if you want to get straight from them. And of course, you can get from the usual places. This game continues to get reprinted, so probably in the feasible future, it will probably still be available physically brand new. If you look around, you could probably get around $30, $28 used if you look around a little. But, Now, what do I think it's valued as? Honestly, to be super honest, if it wasn't for some of the bugs and some of the waffle state of certain scenes in the console version, it definitely would be the more recommended one to get. And while at the end of the day, you're not going to be incapable of finishing the game, as far as my experience with it was, on the PS4 that is. Again, I don't know what the Switch version's like. But with some of the bugs and that, it does make me feel like the value is a little lesser. But honestly, I think this game is a good solid $29 if it was bug-free. But for the console version, if you're going in the unpatched state value, I think it's probably more around probably $25-ish. But honestly, I wouldn't feel bad doing $29.99 on this game. I really liked it. I vibed with it. I literally cried on the final boss. It's a game that I'm definitely going to be renembering along with a lot of the classics that I like. I really love this game, and it really irks me when I read stories of people saying, "Oh Lord, I love this story, but I wish it wasn't a JRPG. Holy crap! What the fuck?" It's so weird because it's like such a like, to me, it feels like such an important part of the game. So it's really strange that there's an audience that loves the story but literally hates the fuck out of the gameplay. It's really strange to me. With beautiful music, lovely 2D graphics, sprite work, drawings, and its colorful dream state, what more could possibly go wrong in this game? Spoilers. So now we're in the final stage, darkness of the game. So, we talked about it's about trauma. It is about horrific trauma. So, the main character, just to go, we're going full wall ball hard spoilers here. So, you know, this is the end of the road if you want to turn around and actually experience the game without my thoughts on the story. But for those who want my thoughts on the story and stuff, that's what we're going into. The main character is dealing with trauma he basically did something absolutely horrendous by accident. It was an accident, but it was still a terrible thing. And the action of hiding it was also terrible. And that act caused the main character immense horrific trauma. And you see that trauma leak into the dream world, as I said. He tries to ignore reality in his real life and everything, and it's leaking into reality and in his fantasies, and it won't leave him alone, and he has to deal with confronting it. And that's what the two-path system of the game is about. Whether you confront that trauma and deal with it, or continue to live in a pure fantasy and ignoring it, and deluding yourself of your actual self. It's relatable to me because what it comes down to is, well, I would hope nobody relates to the actual act that caused the trauma of the main character, because, man, that would be horrible trauma. But I think everyone can relate to the fact that the main character clearly suffers from essentially hating themselves. Like, the final boss and a lot of imagery and things that happen in the late game of confronting the trauma clearly make it where the main character clearly hates themselves. They consider themselves a monster, a horrendous person. Terrible. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. A lot of people do not like themselves. A lot of people hate their real selves. A lot of people hate themselves. There's a lot of people like that, and I definitely relate that. I hate myself. I don't like myself. I don't like how I sound. I grew up being told that I'm just a worthless person, you know, and I feel like a lot of people can relate to that. The ability to love yourself. The ability to forgive yourself. That is what I think is ultimately the big thing in the game, is to be able to overcome terrible acts. Because obviously everyone has committed accidental, horrible things of varying degrees. And while it's obviously hard for some people to forgive something that's truly horrific, sometimes having that understanding to love someone and be able to forgive them is an important thing too. Especially for yourself. To move on from horrific things, you have to be able to forgive yourself so you can move on. But you'll see all kinds of horrific imagery as you go through the journey, especially if you decide to go against the trauma, to go over it, to learn the truth of it, and to ultimately deal with it. You'll face yourself, and you either overcome it or succumb to it. Whatever path you choose in this game, I definitely recommend going for the good ending either way. If you get the bad ending first, I definitely recommend replaying to get the good ending. The bad ending stuff in this game is kind of strange in a way, because there's several bosses and unique quest lines that are only available on the bad path of ignoring the trauma and giving yourself into the dream of the game. It's kind of strange to me to lock so much extra stuff. And as far as I can tell, even though ultimate weapons are locked behind the bad ending loot, you cannot get the good ending with that stuff. It's kind of bizarro, because on one hand, all the hardest fights are in the bad ending path. So it's understandable to a certain degree why the ultimate weapons would only be there, but it is still very strange to have so much stuff locked behind it, in my opinion. I get it to a certain degree, because the dream is the JRPG, the big gameplay aspect of it. So, you know, forfeiting reality to live in the dream even more, it makes sense to a certain theme degree of it. But in a gameplay, like, mechanically, it feels kind of odd to have as much stuff there is in the bad ending route. So essentially, like, if you want to fight all the bosses or experience all the content, you definitely do want to do a bad ending one as well. But if you're not interested in side stuff like that, then you just definitely want to just do a good ending. Between all the bizarre secrets, dark themes, lightheartedness, and the friendships is magical, this is a very lovely game of sad tears and overcoming horrific trauma. I said similar in my Night in the Woods review that if you didn't relate to, like, going to college or dropping out of college, it's probably kind of hard to relate to the main character of Night in the Woods. And I didn't have college life, so for me, it was not so relatable. I have a lot of self-hatred, confidence problems, so I could relate to this game a lot. And not everyone has those problems, and similar to what I said in Night in the Woods, you might have that problem with this game and be like, just get over it, damn it. You know, it might not tug at you, and that's fair, you know. Not everyone has those problems, but there definitely are people with those problems. And I feel like this is a game that can hit you in the feels. Oof. I like to add, it's very interesting that there's a lot of meaningful symbolism in the world between the dream and reality as well. Not simply that there was just, you know, like, this character represents this person in the real world. Like, when it comes to the tragedy and the trauma that the main character is dealing with, there's a lot of interesting symbolism, especially right off the bat at the beginning of the game. This is the kind of game, if you were to replay the entire game knowing the full story, you could be like, you could point out so many crazy parallels just from the beginning of the game of shit that represents so many different things that happened. Again, even though I played the PS4 version, it has some rough spots of that, but overall, I really enjoyed the game and definitely recommend it. If you love JRPGs and you want a heartfelt story, definitely recommend. Now, if you want like a super challenging game, though, I will tell you, this is not a super fucking hard JRPG. I would say it's at best moderately challenging, but I think it probably are leaning more towards the easier side. Not so much like Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars easy, but definitely not like ungodly challenging. Not like Persona 3 PS2 challenging, so I feel like it has more of a moderate difficulty. So overall, though, those are my thoughts. I really enjoyed the game, and I recommend. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to leave a comment down below. Otherwise, sweet dreams. Remember, your friends are there for you. Real friends are there to love you in your time of pain.